pick your hunger from the gutter and leave this place. Please, I am not asking for money. Just let me take the damaged rice.
The torn bag of rice hit the wet concrete, and the grain scattered beneath Victor Adebayo Allo's trembling knees. "Pick your hunger from the gutter and leave this place," the warehouse supervisor shouted. A few workers gasped. Others lowered their eyes. Victor, 68 years old, pressed one palm against the ground and began gathering the rice grain by grain. His faded shirt clung to his back. One of his slippers had already split at the heel, but he did not complain. "Please," he whispered. "I am not asking for money. Just let me take the damaged rice you people want to throw away." The supervisor kicked the old man Allo's wrist. "You still have mouth to bargain. This warehouse is not a feeding center for useless old beggars." Victor Allo's cracked wristwatch fell from his hand and broke beside the rice. Then a voice came from behind them. "Touch him again." The supervisor turned and saw a tall man stepping out of an ordinary taxi, his face dangerously calm. "And who are you?" he demanded. The stranger walked closer, removed his sunglasses, and stared at the man standing over Victor. "My name is Tunde Adebayo." The supervisor Allo's lips parted. Tunde pointed at the old man on the ground. "And that man you just kicked is my father." Nobody moved. The entire warehouse became silent. Tunde had sent his father 1,350,000 naira every month. So why was the father of a billionaire kneeling in dirty water, begging for broken rice? Do not leave this story halfway, because the answer will expose a betrayal buried inside one of Nigeria Allo's most respected companies. Comment your city or country and your local time below, and subscribe now, because what Tunde discovered after taking his father home was far worse than hunger. The warehouse supervisor Allo's raised foot remained suspended for one shameful second before he dropped it to the ground. The authority in his navy uniform suddenly looked borrowed, like something that could be taken from him at any moment. "Tunde Adebayo?" he repeated, but the arrogance had drained out of his voice. "The founder?" Tunde did not answer him. He bent down beside his father. Up close, the sight was worse. Victor Allo's cheeks had sunk. The strong brown hands that once repaired faulty sockets, balanced account books, and dragged bags of cement during the construction of Tunde Allo's first warehouse were now thin enough for the veins to stand out like cords. Rainwater had darkened the knees of his trousers. 3 grains of rice clung to the grey stubble beneath his chin. "Daddy," Tunde said. Victor did not look at him. He picked another grain from the water. "Daddy, leave it." Victor Allo's fingers stopped. "Leave what?" he asked quietly. "The rice or the shame?" The words entered Tunde like a blade. The supervisor moved forward at once. "Sir, please." "It's not what you are thinking. This man has been disturbing the warehouse for months. We had an instruction that he should not be allowed inside." "I did not know." Tunde turned his head. "You did not know he was my father?" "No, sir." "So if he was not my father, kicking his wrist would be acceptable?" The supervisor swallowed. "No, sir. I mean, sir, hope no problem. I was only enforcing company policy." "Which company policy says a hungry old man should be kicked?" The supervisor Allo's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The workers stood behind the loading bay, stiff as poles. Some had sacks on their shoulders. Some were still holding their phones. One woman had covered her mouth with both hands. Nobody dared move. Tunde picked up the broken wristwatch. It was an old Seiko with a scratched silver face. He knew that watch. Victor had worn it on the morning Tunde left Ibadan for university, on the day Tunde registered his first haulage company, and on the day they buried Tunde Allo's mother. The glass was cracked from corner to corner. Tunde closed his fist around it. Who ordered that my father should be banned from this warehouse? The supervisor stared at the ground. Ogadele, sir. The name shifted something inside Tunde. Dele Okonkwo was not only the director of Nigerian operations, he was family. He was the cousin who had shared a room with Tunde during school holidays. The man Tunde had trusted with 8 warehouses, 184 vehicles, and over 900 employees while he expanded the business outside Nigeria. Call him, Tunde said. The supervisor fumbled for his phone. Victor reached out and held his son Alo's sleeve. No. Tunde looked down. Daddy, this man touched you. And you think shouting on the phone will return 14 months to me? The old man Alo's voice was tired, but it still carried the authority that had once made a teenage Tunde put down his football boots and finish his mathematics assignment without argument. Victor looked toward the torn sack. Those grains are still good. They were going to throw them away because the nylon tore. Tell them to gather it properly. There are men outside that gate who have not eaten since morning. Tunde followed his gaze. Beyond the gate, under the leaking roof of a closed mechanic shed, 7 former casual workers stood watching. Their clothes were wet. One of them quickly turned his face when Tunde noticed him. Why are they outside? Tunde asked. The supervisor answered too quickly. They are troublemakers, sir. Their contracts ended. Victor finally stood, slowly, with one hand on his son Alo's arm. Their contracts did not end, he said. Their salaries stopped. A low murmur passed through the workers. The supervisor snapped at them. Keep quiet there. Tunde looked at him once. The supervisor shut his mouth. By 6:58 that evening, every unspoiled grain from the torn sack had been gathered into 2 clean containers. Tunde ordered the warehouse kitchen opened. The supervisor protested that the cook had closed, and that stock release required authorization. Tunde took the pen from the supervisor Alo's breast pocket, signed the release book, and returned it to him. Now you have authorization. He made sure the 7 men outside the gate received food first. Victor watched all this without satisfaction. There was no relief on his face, no triumph, only exhaustion. When Tunde called for one of the company vehicles, Victor refused to enter it. I came in a taxi, Tunde said. I did not inform anybody I was returning. The car is only to take you to a clinic. I am not dying. You are not well. I am managing. Daddy, please. That word, please. Softened something in Victor Alo's eyes. He looked at his son for the first time since the taxi stopped. Tunde had imagined this homecoming differently. He had planned to spend 2 quiet days in Ibadan before appearing at the annual Supplier Forum in Lagos. He wanted to inspect operations without ceremony, surprise his father with a visit, and perhaps convince him to travel with him to Nairobi for a holiday. Instead, Victor stood before him, smelling of rain, dust, and an empty stomach. Fine, Victor said. But not your company clinic. Why? Because the last time I entered any place carrying your company name, I left there as a thief. The clinic on Ring Road was small, private and open 24 hours. At 8:17 p.m., a doctor finished examining Victor and asked Tunde to step into the corridor. Your father is not in immediate danger, she said, but he is underweight for his height. His blood pressure is high, and there are signs that he has not been eating regularly. He also has bruising around the right wrist. Tunde Alo's jaw tightened. Is he confused? The doctor frowned. Confused? Memory problems, dementia, anything like that. Not from what I observed. He knew the date, the location, your full name. The dosage of a blood pressure drug he stopped buying 6 weeks ago, and the exact amount he paid for his consultation. Why are you asking? Tunde said nothing. The doctor lowered her voice. Whatever report you have received, do not diagnose an elderly person through gossip. Cognitive decline requires proper assessment, not family rumors. At 9:04 p.m., Tunde paid the bill and carried a paper bag of medicine to the waiting area. Victor was sitting upright, staring at the floor. "Let us go home," Tunde said. Victor gave a dry laugh. "Which home?" "The house at Makola." Victor looked at him. "You do not know." Tunde felt a coldness spread across his chest. "Know what?" The house is no longer mine. They drove there anyway." The bungalow stood behind a low cream wall on a quiet street near Mokola. The bougainvillea Victor had planted was gone. A new metal gate had replaced the old wooden one, and a different family name was painted beside the bell. Tunde got out before the taxi stopped fully. He knocked. A middle-aged man opened the gate halfway, listened to Tunde Alo's questions, then brought out a file from inside the house. The sale was legal. The property had changed ownership on November 23rd, 8 months earlier, for 38,500,000 naira. Victor had signed the deed himself. Tunde stared at the document under the porch light. "Daddy, why?" Victor stood outside the gate with his medicine bag pressed to his chest. "Not here." "Why did you sell this house?" "I said not here." Tunde lowered his voice. "I sent money every month." The new owner shifted awkwardly behind the gate. Victor turned away. Tunde followed him back to the taxi, his pulse pounding. He told the driver to take them to the service department he used near Jericho whenever he stayed in Ibadan. During the journey, neither man spoke. At 10:11 p.m., Victor sat at the dining table in the apartment while Tunde placed bread, tea, boiled eggs, and a bowl of rice before him. Victor took only water. "Eat." Tunde said, "I will. When?" "When you stop looking at me as if hunger has made me a stranger." Tunde pulled out the chair opposite him. For the first time that night, anger pushed through his fear. "Then explain it to me." "I sent 1,350,000 naira on the 25th of every month. 14 months, that is 18,900,000 naira. You sold your house for 38,500,000. You had your pension. Where is the money?" Victor looked at the bowl of rice. "You are asking the wrong question." "What is the right question?" "Where did you send it?" "To your account." "No." Victor raised his eyes. "You sent money. But you did not send it to me." Tunde took out his phone immediately. He logged into the family support account, entered 2 verification codes and opened the transaction history. The payments were there. Every single one. He turned the screen toward Victor. "Look." Victor did not touch the phone. "That account stopped being mine 14 months ago. That is impossible. Call your bank." It was after 10, but Tunde Alo's private banking officer answered on the second ring. 7 minutes later, she confirmed that the beneficiary details had been changed on May 6th of the previous year, under a power of attorney submitted through the company, Alo's administrative office. The new account ended in 7441. Tunde had never seen it before. "Who submitted the document?" he asked. The banker hesitated. "The scanned request came through the authorized liaison attached to your Nigerian office. I can send the record to your secure email. Do it now." The document arrived at 10:29 p.m. Victor Alo's name appeared at the top. Victor Alo's signature appeared at the bottom. Tunde placed the phone before him. Victor studied the page for less than 5 seconds. "That is not my signature. It looks like yours. It looks like one I made 12 years ago." "What does that mean?" Victor leaned back. "When you opened your first depot, I signed a letter recommending Dili to the bank. My hand was stronger then. Whoever made this used that old signature." Tunde looked again. A sound came from the kitchen. The refrigerator motor had switched off. The apartment became so quiet that he could hear rainwater dripping from the balcony rail. he called Dele. His cousin answered with laughter in his voice. Atunda! Omo, where are you? Kigali or Nairobi? I saw your message this afternoon. I am in Ibadan. The laughter disappeared. Ibadan? I arrived today. You did not tell anybody. Hope no problem. I found my father outside Akinyele warehouse. There was a pause, then Dele sighed. Tund, I have been trying to manage that matter quietly because of your peace of mind. What matter? Uncle Victor has not been himself. He sold the house against advice. He invested money in some desperate schemes. When things failed, he started accusing people. I did not want to alarm you while you were handling the East Africa expansion. He says his bank details were changed. Another pause, shorter this time. Yes, he signed a power of attorney. He says he did not. My brother, an old man can forget. Please do not allow emotion to scatter your head. We have documents. Who is receiving the money? I will check with finance in the morning. You are director of operations. You approved the liaison request. Tunde, it is past 10. Let us not conduct an audit through phone call. Tunde looked at Victor, who had finally picked up a spoon, but was not eating. Come to Jericho at 8 tomorrow morning. I have a meeting in Lagos. Cancel it. 8:00. He ended the call. Victor lifted one spoonful of rice, then placed it back in the bowl. You still trust him, he said. I trust evidence. No. You trust systems because systems do not ask why you were not there. Tunde stood sharply. What do you want me to say? That I should have known? That I should have guessed you had sold your home and were starving? I called you. I have no missed calls from you. I called 37 times. Tunde stopped. Victor Ello's voice did not rise. The first 5 times your assistant said you were in meetings. After that, the calls began going to a recorded message from your Nigerian office. I wrote 3 letters. I sent 4 emails. I came to your office in Lagos twice. They made me sit in reception for 6 hours the first time. The second time, security escorted me out. That did not happen. It happened to me. Tunde Allo's anger broke against those words and fell apart. Victor pushed the bowl away. You built a company that could move 120 tons of rice from Oyo to Lagos before sunset, but a message from your father could not reach you in 14 months. Tunde had no answer. That night, Victor slept in the guest room. Tunde remained at the dining table until 3:18 a.m., reading the power of attorney again and again. At 3:20, he noticed the document metadata. The scanned file had been created on a workstation registered to the office of the Nigerian Director of Operations. Dele Ilo's office. And at 3:27, Tunde found something else. The signature was not the only thing copied from an old document. A tiny ink smudge, shaped like a hook, appeared beneath the last letter of Victor Allo's name. Tunde remembered it clearly. On the original recommendation letter from 12 years earlier, the smudge had come from a leaking pen. A living hand could repeat a signature. It could not repeat an old accident in exactly the same place. The document was forged. Dele arrived at 8:26 the next morning wearing a charcoal suit, polished black shoes, and the expression of a man who had rehearsed concern in the mirror. He entered the apartment carrying fruit, bottled water, and a leather file. Uncle Victor! He said warmly. See how you have reduced. Why did you refuse the help we arranged for you? Victor did not answer. Dele placed the fruit on the table and turned to Tunde. My brother, you should have called me the moment you landed. This is why family matters should not be handled in anger. Tunde sat with both hands folded. What help did you arrange? A managed account, medical support, accommodation. Uncle rejected everything. Which accommodation? Dele Allo's eyes moved briefly toward Victor, a retirement facility outside Ibadan. Very decent place. Victor laughed once, without humor. The place where you wanted me to sign that I could no longer manage my affairs? Uncle, nobody said that. You brought 2 men and a form. They were social workers. They were not. Dealey exhaled like a patient man being tested. Tunde, you see what I mean? Every attempt to help becomes an attack in his mind. Tunde tapped the leather file. What is inside? Dealey opened it. The first document was a complaint, alleging that Victor had diverted 46,700,000 naira from an employee hardship fund. The second contained copies of cash withdrawal slips. The third carried statements from 2 finance employees, claiming Victor had requested payments outside approved procedure. The fourth was a short medical note from a private clinic recommending further assessment for possible confusion, paranoia, and impaired financial judgment. Tund read every page without changing expression. Victor remained by the window. Deal lowered his voice. I did not submit everything to the police because he is your father. I was protecting the family name by banning him from the warehouse. He was creating scenes by changing his bank account. He authorized it. The signature was copied from an old recommendation letter. For the first time, Delialo's face tightened, only for a second. Then he shook his head slowly. Tunde, be careful. You have just returned. You are tired, emotional, and shocked by what you saw. A copied-looking signature does not prove fraud. The file was created on your workstation. Documents pass through my office every day. Who owns account 7441? I told you. Finance will confirm. You have had 12 hours. Dealey leaned back. My brother, are you questioning me as your cousin or as the company director? Both, then question yourself also. I have carried Nigeria operations on my head while you were flying from one capital to another. I handled strikes, fuel shortages, customs delays, supplier riots, and your father's behavior. Now you enter without warning, see one dramatic moment, and look at me as if I am a criminal. Victor turned from the window. Dramatic moment? Deal faced him. Uncle, please. Start. A man kicked me for asking for food and you call it drama. I did not order anybody to kick you. You ordered them to treat me as rubbish. The leg only completed the instruction. Deal stood. His concern disappeared. You know what your problem is, Uncle? You believe age gives you ownership of every room. This company is not the cooperative office, where people trembled because you carried a red pen. You sold your house. You scattered your pension. You gave money to people who know how to cry. Now you want to blame management because reality has reached you. Victor Allo's face went still. Tunde watched Dealey carefully. Sit down, he said. Deal looked at him. Sit. After a moment, Dealey obeyed. Tunde closed the file. I am not making any public decision today. You will continue preparing for the supplier forum. You will not know when or where I am inspecting. You will not contact my father directly. You will preserve every financial record connected to the hardship fund, staff payroll and supplier accounts from the last 24 months. Dele Elo's shoulders relaxed slightly. Good. That is the mature approach. I am also commissioning an independent review. Of course. And Deal? Yes, if one email, one access log, or one bank instruction disappears, I will treat it as deliberate destruction of evidence. Deal held his gaze. Understood. He stood, adjusted his cuff, and picked up the empty leather file. At the door, he turned toward Victor. I still pray you find peace, Uncle. Victor Allo's reply was quiet. Peace is not hiding from truth. Peace is when truth no longer has to beg at your gate. Day left. The door closed. Tunde waited until the lift moved before speaking. I do not believe him. Victor looked almost disappointed. But you do not yet believe me. I believe the power of attorney was forged. That is not the whole matter. Then tell me the whole matter. Victor looked at the breakfast tray. Tea had gone cold. Bread remained untouched. The first complaints started 14 months ago, he said. A group of farmers from 3 cooperatives came to the Mokola house. Their rice had been delivered, weighed and accepted, but payment did not enter. They had borrowed money for seed, fertilizer and transport. The bank was already calling them. Why did they come to you? Because your company carries our surname. Tunde lowered his eyes. Victor continued, I called the Ibadan office. They said payment was delayed because of reconciliation. 2 weeks later, 11 casual workers came. No salary for 3 months. One had been locked out of his room. Another had stopped buying his medicine. I called Dili. What did he say? That cash flow was tight. That foreign expansion had consumed money. That I should not allow poor people to manipulate me. Cash flow was not tight. I know that now. What did you do? I paid the most urgent cases. With your pension? With what I had. How much? Victor did not answer immediately. 12,700,000 from savings and pension. Later, when more people came, I sold the house. Tunde stared at him. All 38.5 million? Not at once. Some went to settle rent arrears, some to medical bills, some to farm loans. I kept records. In a metal box at the room where I stay, Tunde stood. We are going there. Victor did not move. What? Tunde asked. You are still counting only what can enter a spreadsheet. That is how we prove what happened. And after you prove it, I will return every kobo. To whom? To you. Victor shook his head. That money did not leave me because I was cheated by those workers. It left because they were cheated by your company. If you return it only to me, you have repaired your comfort, not the wrong. The sentence landed hard. Tunde sat again. For years, people had praised his decisiveness. Investors said he could reduce a crisis to numbers before others finished panicking. Victor was showing him the weakness inside that strength. Numbers could tell him how much had disappeared. They could not tell him who had slept hungry because of it. The room Victor rented was behind a mechanic workshop off a narrow road near Okado. It measured barely 3 meters by 4. A foam mattress lay on the floor. 2 shirts hung from nails. A plastic bucket stood beside a single hot plate. The window had no curtain, only a piece of faded fabric tied across its slit. Tunde entered and stopped. There was no television, no refrigerator, no proper chair. On the wall was a framed photograph of Tunde at 26, standing beside his first delivery truck. Victor was beside him in the picture, smiling with both hands on his son Alo's shoulders. Daddy. Victor crouched beside the mattress and pulled out a dented blue metal box. Inside were receipts, photocopied identity cards, handwritten acknowledgements, bank teller slips, rent notices, and small pieces of paper carrying phone numbers. The records were not perfect. Some were stained. Some had no official stamp. But they formed a pattern. One payment of 487,000 naira had gone to settle 3 months of rent for 11 workers in a shared building. Another of 913,000 had cleared part of a farmer, Elo's overdue loan. 261,000 covered medical treatment for a warehouse employee. Smaller transfers of 47,000, 63,000 and 89,000, repeated across the months. Tunde sat on the edge of the mattress, sorting the papers. Why did you not tell me the house was sold? I tried. Why did you keep paying after it became clear the company was not correcting the problem? Victor looked at him as if the answer should have been obvious. Because hunger does not pause while rich people investigate. Outside, a mechanic struck metal with a hammer. The sharp sound rang through the room. Tunde picked up a folded letter addressed to him. The envelope was stamped and returned. On the front, somebody had written, "Recipient unavailable. Refer all family correspondence to Nigerian operations." The handwriting belonged to an office assistant, whose name Tunde recognized. He opened the letter. "Tunde, I am writing because talking has become difficult. There are workers here who have not been paid, and farmers whose produce was accepted without settlement. D says everything is under control, but the numbers I have seen do not agree. I am asking you to come home before this becomes bigger than money. Your father." The letter was dated September 14th. Tunde remembered that day. He had been in Kigali signing a distribution agreement. He had stood beneath cameras while journalists asked him how African businesses could build trust across borders. At home, his father, Alo's warning, had been returned unopened. Victor began placing the records back into the box. "Leave them," Tunde said. "I need copies. You can copy them here. You do not trust me to take them. I trusted your system with my calls." Tunde accepted the rebuke. At 1:42 p.m., while he photographed the records, someone knocked on the metal door. Sade entered, carrying 2 food containers in a nylon bag. She was a broad-shouldered woman with tired eyes and flour on the sleeve of her blouse. "Pa Victor, I brought beans and yam," she said. Then she noticed Tunde. "Ah, sorry. I did not know you had visitor." Victor stood. "Sad, this is my son." She looked at Tunde for a long moment. The Billionaire. Tunde had heard the title in boardrooms, airports, and television interviews. In that small room, it sounded like an accusation. "Yes, ma." Sad placed the food on the hot plate. "So you have finally seen him?" Tunde Alo's throat tightened. "I have." "Good." She turned to leave. Victor stopped her. "Bring your book." Sade looked at him. "Which one?" "The food book." Her face changed. "Pa Victor, leave that matter. Tund needs to understand." She returned 20 minutes later with an exercise book covered in brown paper. Inside were dates, names, meals, and small payments written in blue ink. June 3rd, Pa Victor paid for 4 loaders, rice and beans, 3,600. June 8th, Pa Victor paid for Widow Alo's rice, 9,200. June 17th, Pa Victor paid part, balance later. July 1st, Pa Victor bought food for 7 former workers. The entries continued for 9 months. Tunde turned the pages slowly. "How much does he owe you?" Sade folded her arms. "That is not why I brought it. I am asking 83,400. Tunde reached for his phone. Sade slapped the book shut. "Do not insult me." He looked up. "You think because you can transfer money quickly, every matter should close quickly. I did not feed him so that his rich son would pay me with one finger and feel clean. I am not trying to feel clean. Then listen before you pay." Her voice filled the small room. "This man came to my shop when workers were crying. He bought food for people who had abused him the week before. When his own money finished, he would drink water and tell me he had eaten at home. There was no food at home, I knew, but he still asked me to serve other people first." Victor looked away. Sade continued. "People who are trying to stop others from sleeping hungry do not always remember to build a case for themselves. So I wrote it down. Not because I knew you would come. Because poor people Alo's memory is always questioned when rich people Alo's documents are speaking." Tunde placed his phone on the mattress. "I am listening. Then ask why your company Alo's charity posters were everywhere, while the same workers used in those photographs could not buy Gary." Victor Alo's eyes moved to his son. Tunde felt heat rise to his face. He had approved those campaigns. He had praised the Nigerian team for improving community visibility. One photograph had shown Dile distributing bags of rice beneath a banner that read "Dignity in every home." Tund now wondered how many of those bags had returned to the warehouse after the cameras left. That afternoon, he called the company Alo's head of compliance. Zainab answered cautiously. Sir? I need every report you submitted concerning supplier duplication, delayed wages, or beneficiary changes in the last 18 months. Silence. Zainab? Sir. Should I route the request through Ogadele? No. Another silence. I have submitted reports before, she said. Nothing happened. I never received them. Sir. Your office acknowledged too. Send me the acknowledgements. I cannot access the archive from outside the office. Meet me tomorrow morning. Where? Tunde chose a public cafe near Dugby, away from company property. Zainab arrived at 7:12 a.m. She wore a navy blouse, carried no laptop, and kept looking through the glass door. Tunde showed her the forged power of attorney. She studied it, then pressed her lips together. I flagged this account change. When? May 9th last year. The beneficiary name did not match the original account holder. I asked for physical verification. What happened? Ogadile said it was a sensitive family arrangement and outside compliance scope. Do you have the report? My account access was restricted after the third report. I began keeping reference numbers offline. Why did you not contact me directly? Zainab looked at him with careful disbelief. Sir, through which channel? Your Nigerian office filtered all direct messages. Your assistant referred everything back to Ogadele. The last employee who tried to bypass him was transferred to a depot 211 kilometers away. Tund sat back. What else did you flag? 6 supplier companies. Different registration addresses, same verification phone, same device, fingerprint. They received 73,400,000 naira in 20 months. Who approved them? Final approval came from the Director of Operations. Dell. Yes, can you prove it? If the system logs have not been deleted. Tunda leaned closer. Access the archive today. I may lose my job. If the records are clean, nobody will touch you. And if they are not clean? Tunde did not answer quickly enough. Zainab Alo's expression hardened. That is what everybody says when they need a witness. Afterwards, the witness becomes the problem. She stood. Tunde took the unopened letter from his father Alo's metal box and placed it on the table. My father wrote this to me. It was returned by my own office. Yesterday I found him begging for rice outside a warehouse with my surname on the gate. Zainab read the first lines. Tunde Alo's voice dropped. I cannot promise there will be no risk. I can promise the evidence will not disappear into my office again. She remained standing for several seconds. Then she sat down. Give me 48 hours, she said. Before those 48 hours ended, Dile moved first. At 4:05 p.m. that day, every company location received an internal notice stating that Victor Adebayo was an unauthorized outsider under investigation for financial misconduct. Staff were instructed not to admit him, disclose records to him, or engage with any allegations he made. At 4:31 p.m., the remaining balance in Victor Alo's old savings account was frozen following a complaint connected to the missing hardship fund. At 5:02 p.m., 2 officers delivered an invitation requesting Victor Alo's appearance for questioning. The invitation was lawful on its face. The timing was not. Tunde read it at the Jericho apartment while Victor buttoned his faded shirt. You are not going alone, Tunde said. I did not ask you to come. I am coming. Victor looked at him. Yesterday you wanted to save me with anger. Today you want to save me with your name. Both are dangerous if you do not understand what happened. I understand enough. No, you understand that Dili may have stolen. You do not yet understand why people allowed him. Fear. Convenience, Victor said. Fear is honest. Convenience wears a tie and calls itself procedure. At the station, Victor answered every question. He provided the records he had copied, explained the payments, and denied taking money from the hardship fund. Tunde did not interfere. He sat beside him for 3 hours, listening. The officers did not arrest Victor. They scheduled a follow-up interview pending verification. Outside, Tunde said, "I will get the complaint withdrawn." Victor stopped beneath the station light. "No, Daddy, it is false." "Then let it be examined and shown to be false. Do not use power to remove a process, because today the process is touching your family. Fix the process so it does not crush people who have no powerful son." Tunde stared at him. Victor began walking toward the car. For the first time since returning, Tunde understood that his father was not asking to be rescued. He was asking to be heard. The next morning, Tunde changed the way he entered his own company. He left his usual watch in the apartment, wore a plain grey shirt, dark trousers, and safety boots, and traveled with 2 members of the independent audit team under the shortened name TRD. He carried no entourage. No photographer followed him. The regional warehouses had expanded so quickly that many employees knew the founder only from a few old photographs, usually taken in a suit and printed in annual reports. At Akinyele, nobody connected the quiet man, holding a clipboard with the billionaire, whose signature sat at the bottom of their employment contracts. That was how Tunde heard the truth when nobody thought the truth was listening. A receiving clerk explained that good rice was sometimes marked as moisture damaged after weighing. The bags were moved to a side store and later sold through private buyers. Casual workers were charged unexplained equipment deductions for boots they never received. Small farmers who complained about delayed payment were told their grain had failed quality tests, even when the same grain had already been processed and shipped. At 11:23 a.m., Tunde watched a warehouse manager tear a page from a delivery book and replace it with another sheet carrying a lower weight. "Why are you changing the figure?" Tunde asked. The manager barely looked at him. "Consultant, face the work they gave you. Do not put your village curiosity inside warehouse calculation. The first figure was 12,437 kilograms, and now it is 11,890. What happened to the difference?" The manager smiled. "Maybe the rice became afraid and ran away." 2 clerks laughed. Tunde wrote nothing. He only looked at the security camera above the scale and noted its identification number. Behind the warehouse, he found 43 bags bearing the logo of the company, Aloe's Food Relief Program. The bags were full. Their seals were unbroken. A loader explained in a low voice that the bags had been taken to a community event the previous week, arranged behind smiling officials for photographs, then returned after the event. "How many were distributed?" Tunde asked. "7, sir. There are 50 in the photograph." The loader shrugged. Camera does not count hunger. At another depot, a supervisor boasted that dealer had taught them how to control complaints. "Poor suppliers make noise because noise is the only thing they have." The man said. "Ogadele always says hungry people complain loudly because they have nothing valuable to lose." Tunde felt something cold move beneath his ribs. That sentence did not sound like a thief protecting money. It sounded like a culture. By the 3rd day, he had seen enough to understand that Dele Aklo's corruption did not live inside one account. It had spread through language, incentives, and fear. Managers copied his contempt because contempt had become a shortcut to promotion. Workers who asked questions were marked as difficult. Suppliers who insisted on documentation waited longer for payment. Charity was treated as publicity, while genuine need was treated as an inconvenience. Tunde returned to Jericho after 9 p. and found Victor sitting at the table with the medicine arranged beside him. "You were right," Tunde said. Victor did not ask about what. Tunde sat down. "I saw altered weights, false damage records, relief bags used for photographs, wage deductions. People spoke about poor workers as if poverty was a character defect." Victor poured water into a glass. "Who taught them?" Dile encouraged it. "Who rewarded Dele?" Victor drank the water. "My company rewarded results," Tunde said after a moment. "Results without method are only numbers wearing clean clothes." Tund leaned forward. "I am going to repay you everything. The house, the pension, the unpaid support. I have already asked my lawyer to prepare a property transfer. There is a bungalow near Bodia, quiet street, good security." Victor Ayo's face changed, not with gratitude but anger. "You have seen all this, and your first answer is still a house? You need somewhere decent to live. So do the workers who were chased from their rooms. I will settle them too. When? After the audit confirms the claims. And before then, we must follow procedure." Victor pushed his chair back. "Now you are speaking like deal. That is unfair. No, it is uncomfortable. There is a difference." Tunde stood also. "What do you expect me to do? Empty company accounts because people bring handwritten notes? I am responsible for 900 employees, lenders, suppliers, and investors. I cannot turn every painful story into an immediate payment." Victor Elo's voice rose for the first time. "And I could not turn every hungry face into a future audit." Silence crashed into the room. Victor Elo's chest moved quickly. He pressed one hand to the table, then lowered his voice. "You think I sold my house because I do not understand money. I spent 37 years checking cooperative accounts. I know what weak documentation can do. But when a man Alo's landlord is putting his mattress outside, do you first request 3 quotations? When a farmer Alo's land is about to be seized, do you ask hunger to wait for quarter-end approval?" Tunde clenched his jaw. "I am trying to fix this." "No, you are trying to make it stop hurting you. That is not true. Then stop carrying me on your head as the only victim. I am not the center of this matter." Victor walked to the guest room and closed the door. Tunde remained beside the table. On the counter lay the property papers for the Bodija bungalow. He picked them up, looked at the neat pages, then placed them inside a drawer. The next morning, he ordered emergency payments for verified salary arrears using existing payroll records, without waiting for the entire fraud review to conclude. He also created a temporary hardship window run by the independent auditors, not by Nigerian operations. Claims required basic evidence, but urgent rent, medical, and farm loan cases were processed within 48 hours. It was not charity. It was money already owed. When Tunde told Victor, the old man only nodded. It was not forgiveness, but it was the first sign that he had heard. Zainab contacted Tunde at 2:16 a.m., 2 nights later. "I found the archive," she whispered. "Where are you?" "At home. I copied the reference files to encrypted storage." "What did you find?" "The beneficiary change was approved at 11:17 p.m. from Oga Dele Ilo's office computer. His access token was used. There are also emails instructing Finance to remove 6 suppliers from enhanced verification." "Can he claim somebody used his token?" "He can claim anything. But the building access log shows his entry at 10:54 p.m. and exit at 11:41 p.m. The device fingerprint matches." Tunde stood from the bed. "What about my father Alo's calls?" "There is a communications routing rule attached to his number. All calls were diverted to an internal mailbox marked Family Escalation. 37 call records. None reached you." Tunde closed his eyes. "Who created the rule?" "An administrator under Dele Alo's instruction. I found the email." Send everything to the independent auditors. I will, Zainab, leave the office tomorrow. Do not go back. It may already be too late. The line went dead. At 8:05 a.m., Zainab Allo's company account was disabled. At 8:19, an internal notice accused her of unauthorized access and possible data theft. At 9:03, Deal called an emergency management meeting and announced that a disgruntled compliance officer, C, had conspired with Victor to fabricate allegations. By noon, Zainab had received a formal invitation for questioning in connection with the missing hardship fund records. Deal had changed direction. He was no longer only erasing Victor. He was building a new thief. Tunde met Zainab at the independent auditor's Allo office in Lagos. She arrived carrying a small handbag and the exhaustion of somebody who had not slept. I knew this would happen, she said. You protected the records, and now everybody in the company will say I stole them. The access logs will show you copied records after reporting concerns. If they are allowed to speak, they will speak. Zainab looked at him. Sir, evidence does not speak by itself. Somebody gives it a microphone. Tunde thought of the supplier forum scheduled for 6 days later. Dale would be on stage before board members, banks, farmers, workers, and media. The program included a segment titled Protecting Community Resources Through Transparency. Deal had arranged it himself. Tunde made his decision. He will have his microphone, he said. Then we will connect the truth to it. The audit team spent the next 5 days matching records. The 6 supplier companies had different names and different registered addresses, but 5 shared one verification telephone number. All 6 had been accessed from the same device on 29 occasions. Payments traveled through layered accounts and eventually reached entities linked to Dile Allo's associates. 2 luxury vehicles and a property in Lagos had been purchased within days of major transfers. The total trace diversion stood at 73,400,000 naira. The support payment stolen from Victor added another 18,900,000, 92,300,000 naira. The number looked clean on paper. Its consequences were not. The audit team matched Victor Allo's 38,500,000 naira house sale and 12,700,000 in savings to payments made on behalf of 61 workers and 23 farmers. Some transfers were direct. Others were confirmed through landlord receipts, clinic records, cooperative loan statements, and Sad Allo's food ledger. The evidence was not perfect. Together, it was overwhelming. Tunde also listened to the recording Zainab had preserved from a management meeting held 11 months earlier. Dile Allo's voice came first. Block the old man. He is making suppliers bold. Another voice asked, what if the chairman hears? Tunde hears what enters his calendar. By the time he returns, everybody will believe his father stole the money. There was laughter in the room. Tunde replayed the recording 3 times. On the 4th, Victor entered the audit office. He listened without sitting. When Dele Al's voice reached the final sentence, Victor Al's face did not change. He simply looked at his son. Tunde stopped the audio. I should have heard you, he said. Victor remained silent. I remember the call, Tunde continued. 8 months ago, you started talking about unpaid workers. I told you Dele handled Nigeria. I said you should not turn every complaint into a family emergency. Yes, I was wrong. Victor looked toward the window. Tunde Allo's voice broke slightly. I was not too busy to listen. I decided your concern was less important than what I was doing. That is the truth. Victor sat at last. You sent money because money was easier than conversation. Yes, you called your assistant to remember my medication, your banker to send my allowance, and Deal to handle my complaints. You outsourced being a son. Tunde absorbed the words without defense. I did. Victor turned to him. Dele stole from me. But before he stole the money, he studied the empty space between us. Tunde Alo's eyes filled. I cannot change the last 14 months. No. But I can change what happens next. That depends on what you think next means. Tunde opened the drawer beside him, removed the Bodija property papers, and placed them before Victor. I prepared this 3 days ago. Victor did not touch them. I am not asking you to accept it now, Tunde said. I am showing you what I was still thinking. I thought a better house would prove I had repaired things. He tore the unsigned transfer form in half. Victor watched. The salary arrears are being paid, Tunde continued. The urgent supplier cases are being processed. After the forum, I will propose an independent complaints office, dual approval for beneficiary changes, and full ownership verification for suppliers. No family member will control a complaint involving another family member. And the people who remain silent? They will be protected if they testify truthfully. And those who abused workers because Dilly rewarded them? They will face discipline. Not because I am angry, but because the culture must change. Victor looked at the torn property papers. You are beginning. It was the closest thing to approval Tunde had received. That evening, Victor returned to Saad Alo's canteen near Akinyele. The place had 6 plastic tables, a metal counter, and a generator that coughed every few minutes. Tund went with him. A former loader sat in the corner, staring at a plate he had not paid for. It was the same man who had looked away while the warehouse supervisor kicked Victor Alo's wrist. When Victor entered, the man stood quickly. Pa, Victor, I am sorry. Victor sat beside him. You were afraid. I should have spoken. Yes, the man lowered his head. Victor divided his rice into 2 portions and pushed half across the table. The man began to cry. I do not deserve this. Victor picked up his spoon. Food is not a medal for good behavior. Eat. Tunde watched his father share the first proper meal he had accepted in days with someone who had failed him. Kindness, he realized, was not softness. Sometimes it was the strongest refusal to become like the person who had hurt you. The loader agreed to testify. So did 9 others. The night before the forum, Deal released a final announcement to senior staff. At the event, he said, the company would publicly identify the individual responsible for stealing resources meant for vulnerable workers and farmers. He did not write Victor Alo's name. He did not need to. By then, rumors had done the work. At 11:38 p.m., Tunde received the event program. Victor O's photograph had been inserted into Dile Alo's presentation. The image showed him outside a Kinyele warehouse, bending beside the torn sack of rice. The frame had been cropped. The supervisor Alo's raised foot was missing. The spilled rice was missing. The humiliation had been edited into guilt. Tunde stared at the photograph. Then he sent one instruction to the technical team, working with the independent auditors. Do not remove Dele Alo's presentation. Let him show everything. The Harvest Dignity Partnership Forum opened at 10 a.m. in a hotel conference hall on Victoria Island. The room had been dressed to look generous. Tall banners carried photographs of smiling farmers. White tablecloths covered 72 round tables. A row of polished rice bags stood near the stage beneath the words, Feeding Nigeria with Integrity. Bank representatives sat beside cooperative leaders. Board members occupied the front section. Journalists adjusted cameras near the back. Deal moved through the hall in a deep blue suit, shaking hands and accepting praise. He looked completely at home. That was the danger of polished wickedness. It did not enter wearing horns. It arrived early, checked the microphone, and greeted everybody by name. Victor came through a side entrance at 10:41 with 2 security officers assigned to accompany him. He wore a simple cream kaftan that Sade had insisted he accept. His wrist carried no watch. When people recognized him, whispers moved from table to table. That is the chairman Alo's father. They said he took the hardship money. Why would a man from that family steal? Greed does not know family. Victor heard enough to understand the rest. He walked without lowering his head. Toon sat 3 rows from the back beside the independent audit team, dressed in the same plain grey shirt he had worn during the inspections. Only the board chair and 2 legal advisors knew he was in the hall. Dele believed Tunde was still reviewing documents from a private office in Lagos. At 11:18, Dele stepped onto the stage. Distinguished partners, respected farmers, hard-working staff. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, integrity is not a slogan. It is the foundation on which trust stands. The words rolled smoothly from his mouth. He praised the company, Alo's expansion, its relief program, and its commitment to vulnerable communities. Photographs appeared behind him, Deal handing bags to elderly women, Deal shaking hands with farmers, Deal standing beside smiling workers. Some of those relief bags had returned to the warehouse before sunset. At 11:36, he lowered his voice. Unfortunately, even the most compassionate system can be attacked from within. Over the past year, funds meant for struggling employees and small suppliers were diverted through unauthorized cash requests. The person involved used family access, emotional pressure, and the respect attached to an older name. The screen changed. Victor Alo's cropped photograph appeared. A man bending near a sack of rice. No raised foot, no muddy ground, no sign that he had been begging for what the warehouse intended to discard. Only a picture prepared to look like theft. Gasps moved through the hall. Della turned toward Victor. Chief Victor Adebayo. You were given many private opportunities to explain 46,700,000 naira in missing hardship funds. Instead, you spread allegations against innocent staff and attempted to damage the company your son built. Victor remained seated. Deal raised one hand toward the security officers. For the sake of transparency, we have invited the relevant investigators. Nobody is above accountability, not even family. Applause. Began in one corner, uncertain at first, then stronger as employees loyal to Deely joined. Victor stood. The applause weakened. He looked directly at Deely. You have spoken for 11 minutes, he said. May I speak for one? Dill smiled sadly, as if humoring a confused relative. Uncle, this is not the place for another emotional outburst. You brought my photograph here. We brought evidence. Then allow evidence to answer. Deal turned to security. Please escort him outside before this becomes undignified. One officer moved toward Victor. A chair scraped at the back of the hall. Before anyone removes my father, Toon said, perhaps the man who stole from him should finish his presentation. Every head turned. Tunde walked down the aisle. The hall changed around him. People rose. Cameras swung. A board member dropped his pen, and the small object struck the glass table with a sharp click. Dele Alo's smile froze. Ptund, he said. You are here. I have been here long enough. Deely stepped away from the lectern. Good. Then you can confirm that we agreed to handle this through proper channels. We agreed to preserve records. Yes. You disabled Zainab Alo's account, accused her of theft, and prepared a public attack on my father. Because new evidence emerged. No, because old evidence survived. Tunde reached the stage. The technical screen went black. Deal glanced toward the operator. What is happening? Tunde took the second microphone. Your presentation is over. A transaction record appeared behind them. Tunde faced the audience. For 14 months, 1 million. 350,000 naira was transferred every month for my father Alo's support. He did not receive it. The screen displayed the beneficiary change. The account was changed through a power of attorney submitted from the Nigerian Operations Office. The signature was copied from a 12-year-old recommendation letter. The copied document reproduced an ink smudge from the original in exactly the same position. The original letter appeared beside the forged form. The matching mark was circled. A murmur spread across the hall. DL lifted his microphone. Nah, this proves only that an old document may have been reused by an administrator. Tunde nodded. Nah, that is why we checked the system. The next screen showed an access record. May 6th, 11:17 p.m. The beneficiary change was approved from the workstation inside the Director of Operations Alo office. The Director Alo's access token was used. The building log records Dele Okonkwo entering at 10:54 p.m. and leaving at 11:41. Dele Alo's face hardened. Somebody used my workstation. Then, perhaps, the same person used your token on 29 different occasions to approve 6 supplier companies. 6 names appeared, different addresses. The same verification number, the same device fingerprint, the same final approver. Dele, Tunde continued. These companies received 73,400,000 naira. Funds moved through related accounts and were followed by the purchase of 2 luxury vehicles and 1 property in Lagos, connected to entities controlled by Dele Alo's associates. One of the bank representatives leaned forward. Board members began whispering urgently. Deal raised his voice. Sir, this is a preliminary interpretation. You cannot stand here and accuse me based on incomplete tracing. I built these operations while you were outside Nigeria collecting praise. Tunde looked at him. You are correct about one thing. I was outside Nigeria. The admission silenced the room. Tunde turned toward Victor. My father called me 37 times. The screen displayed the communication log. His number was diverted into an internal mailbox labeled Family Escalation. His letters were returned. His emails were answered by people instructed to keep him away from me. Dele Alo's breathing became visible. That routing was for protection. Uncle Victor was harassing staff. Victor spoke from the floor. I was reporting unpaid wages. Deal pointed at him. You were demanding money without approved documentation. Money already owed to workers, Victor replied. Tunde signaled to the operator. The next image showed the sale deed for the Mokola bungalow. My father sold his home for 38,500,000 naira. He used another 12,700,000 from pension and savings. Independent verification traced the money to rent, medical bills, farm loans and food for 61 workers and 23 farmers whose payments had been withheld. Saad Alo's ledger appeared on the screen beside clinic receipts. Landlord acknowledgements and cooperative statements. Said stood near the middle of the hall. She held up the brown-covered exercise book. I wrote every meal, she said. Not because anybody promised me a contract, because I knew one day rich documents would call a hungry man a liar. Several workers rose behind her. The loader who had once looked away spoke with a shaking voice. Pa Victor paid my rent when the company owed me 3 months, Alo's salary. I was at the gate when they humiliated him. I was afraid to speak. What they are showing is true. Another worker stood. Then another. A farmer raised a payment demand notice from his cooperative bank. Deal looked around the hall and saw the crowd moving beyond his control. He laughed suddenly. So, this is the plan? Gather poor people, give them a story, and use emotion to destroy the man who kept this company alive. Zainab walked onto the stage. Deal stared at her. She wore a simple dark dress and carried no papers. The records are with 3 independent custodians, she said. Deleting my account did not delete the archive. Delialo's voice sharpened. You accessed confidential systems without authorization. I submitted 3 compliance reports. You suppressed them. That is a lie. Tunde pressed a button on the lectern. Delialo's recorded voice filled the hall. Block the old man. He is making suppliers bold. A second voice asked what would happen if Tunde heard. Then Delialo's answer came, clear and careless. Tund hears what enters his calendar. By the time he returns, everybody will believe his father stole the money. Nobody breathed. The recording ended. A glass slipped from somebody else's hand near the front table. It struck the floor and shattered. Del looked at the board, then at the cameras, then at Tunde. His face had lost its polish. You recorded a private meeting, he said to Zainab. I preserved evidence after you ordered the destruction of reports. You ungrateful office rat. I lifted you from ordinary compliance work and gave you a seat near management. You gave me a seat so my silence would look professional. A few people murmured approval. Deal turned to Tunde. My brother, listen to me. Whatever accounting adjustments happened, they happened under pressure. Your expansion drained Nigeria. Suppliers were shouting. Staff were restless. I moved money to keep operations stable. You bought vehicles. Assets can be sold. You stole my father Alo's allowance. I was managing a difficult old man who refused help. Victor Alo's eyes closed briefly. There it was. Not denial. Contempt. Deal stepped closer to Tunde and lowered his voice, forgetting the microphone was still live. Do not disgrace family because of these people. They will collect money today and insult you tomorrow. Poor people have no loyalty. The words traveled through every speaker in the hall. A sound rose from the audience, not quite a shout, not quite a gasp. Tunde looked at the workers, farmers, and canteen owner Dile had reduced to these people. Then he looked at his father. I need to say something that is not in the audit, or Tunde said. He faced the hall. Or Dele committed the fraud. The records show that. But fraud grows where somebody gives it room. My father called for help, and I sent money instead of listening. Staff raised concerns, and my office returned them to the same man they were reporting. I celebrated growth while people carrying that growth were not paid. The board members stopped whispering. Tunde continued. I cannot stand here as an innocent billionaire who has come to rescue everybody. My absence did not steal the money, but it protected the thief. I take responsibility for that. Victor looked at his son for a long moment. This time, something in his face softened. The board chair rose. Pending full investigation, Dele Okonkwo is suspended from all duties with immediate effect. His system access is revoked. All relevant records will be transferred to independent investigators, and preservation orders will be sought over assets linked to the disputed funds. Dele stepped back. You cannot suspend me like a messenger. The chair Alo's reply was cold. We are suspending you like an executive who has lost the board Alo's confidence. Security approached. Deal pointed toward Tunde. This company will collapse without me. Tunde answered. Any company that survives only by hiding hunger deserves to be rebuilt. As Dele was escorted from the stage, he had to pass the rows of workers and farmers he had mocked. Nobody touched him. Nobody needed to. The silence was heavier than any beating. The warehouse supervisor sat near the aisle. His face was wet with sweat. Tunde called his name. The supervisor stood slowly. Who ordered my father banned from the warehouse? Ogadele, sir. And who kicked him? The supervisor Elo's lips trembled. I did, sir. Why? The supervisor looked toward Victor. Because I believed he was nobody. Victor walked to the stage steps. He did not demand that the supervisor kneel. He did not curse him. He did not ask the crowd to humiliate him in return. A hungry man is not a lesser man, Victor said. The day you believe poverty removes somebody, Aloe's dignity is the day your own character becomes poor. The supervisor lowered his head. I am sorry. Your apology does not cancel discipline, Victor replied, but discipline should teach, not only destroy. Tunde offered his father the chair at the center of the stage. Daddy, please sit here. Victor looked at the chair, then at the workers below. He walked past it. He sat beside the former loader who had once looked away. The cameras followed him. For once, the most powerful image in the room had not been arranged. Before the forum ended, Tunde announced the first corrective measures. Verified salary arrears would be paid in full. Suppliers whose accepted produce had gone unpaid would receive settlement, plus documented financing penalties. Workers wrongly dismissed for raising complaints would have their records reviewed and restored. An independent claims desk would remain open for 90 days. No claim would pass through the Office of Nigerian Operations. He also cancelled the staged food presentation. The 43 relief bags sitting in Akinyele warehouse were transferred that afternoon to an audited community food program, with quantities, recipients and delivery confirmations published internally. No politician held the bags for photographs. No executive gave a speech. The food simply reached people. 7 months later, the final audit was complete. The traced fraud remained 92,300,000 naira, excluding additional penalties and investigation costs. Preservation orders covered the 2 vehicles, the Lagos property, and several connected accounts. The criminal case continued through the proper process. DA had not been declared guilty by a conference hall, but he could no longer hide behind the authority of his office while investigators worked. The company did not recover overnight. Trust returned more slowly than money. All 61 workers and 23 farmers, identified in Victor Aloe's records, received what they were owed. Some received compensation for rent penalties, medical interruption, or farm loan charges. Employment files were corrected. Cooperative statements were reconciled. Independent financial counselors helped farmers restructure debts that could not be solved by one payment alone. Zainab was appointed head of ethics and compliance after a formal recruitment review. She reported to an audit committee, not to the managing director. Her first policy required 2-level verification for every beneficiary change and physical confirmation for elderly account holders, where risk indicators appeared. Supplier companies had to disclose their real owners. Complaints involving relatives of senior executives could no longer be handled inside the family chain. Every warehouse received a protected reporting channel. Retaliation became a disciplinary offense. Food safe for consumption, but damaged in packaging, was logged and transferred to approved food banks instead of being thrown away or privately sold. The warehouse supervisor lost his supervisory role and served a 3-month suspension. When he returned, it was as an ordinary inventory clerk under probation. He completed workplace conduct training and later volunteered to help design the damaged food procedure. Victor accepted his apology. He did not erase the consequence. Sadeh Alau's canteen applied for a small business support program through an open process. She submitted records, passed inspection, and received equipment financing available to other local food vendors on the same terms. Tunde did not hand her a private contract. When he told her the application had been approved, she nodded and said, "Good. Help that depends on friendship can become another form of corruption." Victor never accepted a board seat. "I spent too many years telling people to separate family from controls," he said. "I will not enter through the back door because the company now feels guilty." He agreed to serve for 1 year as an unpaid community advisor. His condition was simple. Every worker complaint had to receive a written response, even when management disagreed. Tunde bought a modest bungalow near Victor Allo's old neighborhood. He did not place the documents before his father as a surprise. He took Victor to inspect the house, showed him the cost, explained the ownership structure, and asked what he wanted. Victor chose the smaller bedroom because it faced the morning sun. On Friday evenings, Tunde called him directly. No assistant scheduled the calls. No administrator filtered them. Sometimes they spoke for 40 minutes. Sometimes Victor said only, "I am fine. Have you eaten?" Tunde learned not to fill silence with money. One Friday, he drove to Ibadan and took Victor back to Akinyele warehouse. The gate had been repainted, but the patch of concrete where the rice fell was still visible. Workers moved in and out beneath the evening sun. Nobody knew why Victor stopped there. A new loader pushed a trolley past them. One bag caught on a metal edge and tore open. Rice poured onto the floor. The young man froze. "Sir, please," he said to his supervisor. "Do not deduct it from my salary." The metal caught the bag. "I did not do it deliberately." Before the supervisor could answer, Victor bent down. He began gathering the clean grains into an empty container. Tunde removed his jacket and knelt beside him. The loader stared. "Chairman, sir, you do not have to do that." Tunde picked rice from the concrete. "My father once knelt here alone," he said. That was the problem. Other workers joined them. Nobody laughed. Nobody kicked a hand. Nobody called hunger dirty. When the grain had been gathered, the damaged bag was weighed, recorded, and transferred according to the new procedure. The loader signed the incident report. No illegal deduction touched his salary. Victor washed his hands beneath the outdoor tap. Tunde stood beside him. "Daddy," he said, "have I made it right?" Victor dried his hands slowly. "You have made some things better, only some. A person who thinks he has finished learning respect is already becoming dangerous." Tunde smiled. Victor looked toward the gate where the evening traffic moved through Akinyele. "Keep listening," he said. "That is how you continue." What stayed with me about Victor Allo's story was not that a billionaire eventually exposed a thief. Wealth can hire auditors, lawyers, and investigators. The harder lesson was that a man could send money home every month and still abandon his father inside silence. Tunde had confused provision with presence, and Dile used that distance as a hiding place. Respect is not proven by charity banners, expensive gifts, or speeches about helping the poor. It is revealed in how we treat the person who cannot advance our ambition, the worker whose name will never enter an annual report, and the hungry man standing at a gate with nothing to offer us. When somebody has to beg for food, food is not the only thing missing. They also need to be seen. They need to be heard. And above everything, they must still be treated as human.